In this video, I'm going to introduce the in general outline and the requirements of a research-based position paper assignment. This will be the last major writing assignment you complete. So in general, your task here is to write a 1,500-word paper that develops and supports a claim as discussed in class. Now, there's a later video in this week's module that discusses identifying a claim, developing a claim. We'll talk more about refining that process in the coming week. 1,500, let me just say this about the 1,500 word limit. Certainly this includes an introduction and a concluding paragraph. You're probably going to include a paragraph, at least 3 paragraphs that support your claim. You'll be required to include an opposing viewpoint, another approach that takes 1 to 2 more paragraphs, and sometimes you may have a topic in which you write a paragraph of context to sort of outline what the problem or the issue is if you think your reader is unfamiliar with it. So it's a multi-paragraph essay. It certainly does not fit nicely into the 5-paragraph model a lot of people are comfortable with. Now, including the perspectives of other sources is vital to the success of your paper. So you're required to include at least 4 sources in your paper. These must be published, print, or internet sources. 4 is the rock bottom minimum. Stronger papers will typically use more sources. You may find other kinds of sources such as TED Talks, podcasts, NPR broadcasts useful as well. So as you do your research and compile your sources, you certainly can use anything that helps you. But it is important that you are aware of who your sources is, what their credibility is. A kind of paper like this is only as good as your sources, and if your sources are sketchy, then there's a likelihood that your final grade will be sketchy. I would advise you to really concentrate on sources where you can identify the author, and to avoid those kind of web pages where there is no individual author identified. Opinions, expert opinions, authority in that sense is really important in a paper like this. So be sure as much as possible that you know who is responsible for the information you're putting in your paper. Now, of these 4 sources, at least one source must explain or support an opposing viewpoint. That is the viewpoint of people who would disagree with you about your claim. And we'll also talk about that in the coming weeks, how to position this opposing viewpoint and also how to propose a counter argument against their points of view. But this is a requirement. You've got to identify the viewpoint of an opponent, let's say. You're welcome to include personal interviews or communications. So if you were writing about healthcare and you know someone who works as a nurse, you could interview that person or exchange emails with that person, and that information is fine, but you can't count it toward your 4 sources. Now, the purpose of any persuasive or position paper is to anticipate the initial stance of an audience that is resistive or opposite to your own and move their thinking in the direction you want them to go. This doesn't have to be a big shift. It could just be a nudge. But keep in mind that you're writing this for an audience that does not necessarily see the issue the way you do. So in addition, this assignment has the following goals: to introduce basic principles of persuasion, to create a logical argument appropriate for the writing situation and academic setting, practice and sharpen critical reading, thinking, and writing skills, develop research and documentation skills, create a unified thesis, which we'll call the claim in this assignment, write well-developed body paragraphs, integrate source material effectively, accurately, and responsibly, organize information coherently. That is, that the ideas move from paragraph to paragraph, and that everything in your paper is related to supporting that claim. You'll want to assume in this particular case that your audience possess the kinds of constraints that keep them from accepting your claim completely. As I said, your task is to nudge them toward your position. This like the other papers will be in MLA style for in-text citation, the works cited page, and other forms of documentation. 12-point Times New Roman, everything double-spaced. Okay, so that's the general assignment. And so in the next video, we'll take a look more at focusing on selecting a topic, and a topic that works, and a topic that yields up a debatable claim. All right, thanks.